Israel has transformed Gaza and the West Bank into a major theater of conflict. It has caused the death of tens of thousands of people, numbers likely running into the hundreds of thousands. The loss of life is incomprehensible. The largest casualty of this conflict, civilians, women, and children, lost forever, before they were allowed to write their own story in this life. But it doesn't end there. Within a very short period, Israel has launched airstrikes and cross-border operations in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iran, and now also Qatar. How is this even possible? Who is signing off on this? Why doesn't the global community do more? And the most fundamental question might be, is there no one capable of enforcing international law on the global stage? In a recent interview on Judge Napolitano's excellent podcast, Douglas Macgregor had this to say.
Yes, I think we need to understand that the Israelis are accustomed to acting with impunity on the assumption of complete unconditional support from Washington for anything they want to do. And this has certainly been true for the last 3 years. So I'm sure they probably informed someone somewhere. I imagine the CIA was aware of it. Whether or not this was passed in real time to the Secretary of Defense or the President, we have no way of knowing.
A question that has come up recently is fascinating. Political analysts such as Glenn Deason, Scott Ritter, John Mearsheimer, and many others have debated who is really in control when it comes to Israel's actions. Does Israel control the U.S., or does the U.S. simply use Israel to carry out the American empire's bidding? And what exactly is the relationship between American presidents and Israel? Here are Macgregor's thoughts on that.
But they haven't had to really clear anything with us, frankly, for 3 years under Biden or Trump. Both presidents said, whatever you want, you get. So I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed that they've killed more negotiators. This seems to be the hallmark of Bibi Netanyahu's regime. You kill the negotiating team before it has a chance to show up and negotiate.
In extension to the issue of U.S. and Israel relations, here is what President Nixon said to that very question.
An American president, however, has to approach it in a different way, in my opinion. He's got always to think first of what is best for America, and that's true whether it has to do with the Israelis or whether it has to do with the Irish or the Germans or what have you, or the Poles, etc. Usually what is best for America is also best for Israel and vice versa. But on occasions, for example, an American president must make a decision that does not in effect give the Israelis a blank check. And one example of that is a decision that I made. I decided early on in our administration that we were going to seek good relations with Egypt and others of Israel's neighbors. Many of my Israeli friends didn't like that because they wanted a special relationship with Israel and Israel only. But I have always said that Israel's interests are better served to have the United States a friend of Israel's neighbors and potential enemies than to leave a vacuum which the Soviet Union would fill. I still believe that, and I think that should be American policy today.
Specifically regarding Qatar, who authorized it? Is it realistic to believe that Israel carried out this attack without help from the United States?
This is the basis for their strategy of balkanization, to turn the region into a mess that has no structure and cannot possibly right itself. So I don't think we should be surprised by this, but here's something that we all need to consider carefully. President Trump doesn't have a national security advisor at the moment. Remember, he simply assigned that task to Secretary of State Rubio. Secretary of State Rubio is allegedly or reportedly the man behind the proposed intervention against Venezuela. That seems to be at the top of his list of important targets. I don't know what he knew, but normally a national security advisor would be one of the first people to learn of this intention. And under the circumstances, that national security advisor would walk into the Oval Office and said, sir, this is something of which you need to be aware. You may want to intervene to stop this, given the fact that this is sovereign national territory of a state that is not hostile to us, is actually friendly to the United States. And this could precipitate crises over which we may not have much control in the region. But there is no national security advisor like that that's going to walk in and tell the president that. And the people that are on the National Security Council staff are almost universally Zionists in their orientation. Many of them are dual citizens. So I don't know where President Trump would turn for an objective assessment. And I doubt seriously that Secretary Hegseth was deeply involved in any of this.
Just recently on the podcast Dialogue Works, Scott Ritter explained in very clear terms that for any Israel airstrike or military action to be carried out, airspace clearance would have had to be given. Therefore, arguing that the U.S. know nothing about this makes little sense.
We certainly have visibility of it, and a de facto control is highly probable. But nothing like this could happen without us figuring it out pretty quickly. I think this is a statement by President Netanyahu that is designed to get Donald Trump off the hook, to essentially avoid any responsibility being shifted to Washington. But the truth is, nothing happens over there with the Israelis without our unconditional support. So, he can take full responsibility, but that's the same as saying we have nothing to do with what's happening in Gaza, but we're providing whatever support the Israelis want for the operation. It's the same thing.
There are rumors about an imminent attack on Iran by Israel, perhaps in conjunction with the U.S. Here are Macgregor's thoughts on that.
Nobody knows exactly when it'll happen. I thought probably before the end of September or beginning of October. Most people say certainly no later than December. So we have a window. The question is, does that make any sense if you're an Israeli looking at what's going on the ground in Iran? Because Iranian integrated air defenses are improving dramatically. They have a lot of new materiel as well. If anything, Iran is going to be much more formidable this time than it was before. But we also see a lot of activity at Dimona, the nuclear development site inside Israel. Conceivably, the Israelis could plan the use of some sort of nuclear weapon. Who knows? Anything is possible now. I think Mr. Witkoff is probably part of that in some way. I don't know that I would characterize Qatar as entirely neutral. I think Qatar is like most of the peninsular Arab states. They would just as soon see this war in Israel with the Palestinians end, but they're not going to put themselves at risk to help the Palestinians or assist them in any way. So are they neutral? Let's put it this way. They're not hostile necessarily to Hamas and certainly not hostile to the Palestinians, but I don't think I would call them completely neutral. Now, this incident, if it involved the deaths of a number of people, we don't know what the casualties were. We don't know how many people were killed. We don't know exactly what happened to the negotiating team. There are conflicting reports. But this could certainly have an impact on our relations with Qatar in a very negative fashion. We may not be able to go there in the future. We may have to find somewhere else to go. But I don't think anybody is completely surprised. The Israelis are simply more brazen than ever before because there is no one out there to enforce international law in any way, shape, or form. Although Putin has made a number of statements recently indicated that depending upon what the Israelis do in the future vis-a-vis Iran and other countries in the region, that the Russians may be willing to intervene militarily. We don't know.
Whether you look north, south, east, or west, there are conflicts that threaten to spill over to neighboring regions or countries, potentially sparking the onset of World War III. May those with a calm hand, a kind heart, and a vision for a better world prevail.